We can't find west. Everything is wrong. We can't be sure of any direction. Everything looks strange, even the ocean.
December 5th, 1949, a group of 5 fighter planes takes off from their base in Fort Lauderdale for a routine training exercise over the Atlantic Ocean that becomes anything but routine. They are never heard from again.
I've never seen anything like this, man.
It's true. The 1960s and 70s are known as 2 decades of weirdness. The children of those who came home from World War II were becoming adults with a sense of security not known in the U.S. for decades. Yes, the had dawned, and young people started looking outside themselves, trying to make sense of the universe around them, growing entire movements like Scientology, Earth Day, and pet rocks. Little too much time on their hands. Amid these quests for answers to the unexplained, a then little-known writer, Vincent Gaddis, writes an article for the February 1964 edition of Argosy magazine, highlighting a strange area off the coast of Florida where an unusually high number of ships and planes had gone missing. Articles had been written about this area before, with documented cases of strange disappearances occurring as early as the 1880s, but his title, The Deadly Bermuda Triangle, captured the attention of the masses. The article proved to be so popular that the next year, Gaddis expanded this article into a chapter of his new book, Invisible Horizons. If that name sounds familiar, he and his book, Invisible Horizons, is featured in 2 of our past videos, on the SS Orang Medan and on the Philadelphia Experiment. Links to those videos in the description below. Add to the growing interest in a seemingly cursed area right off the coast of the US, Charles Berlitz's book, The Bermuda Triangle, and Richard Weiner's book, The Devil's Triangle, both out in 1974, you have yourself a full-on craze. For those of you who were too busy painting your pet rock in the 70s who don't know what the Bermuda Triangle is, it's a roughly 440,000 square mile triangular-shaped area of the Atlantic Ocean between Miami, Florida, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and the island of Bermuda. Some people even say that the Miami-Bermuda line is actually the east coast of the US, but tomato, tomato. And this area is rumored to be the home of a disproportionately high number of ships and airplanes going missing. Now, the biggest jewel in the crown, so to speak, of these reported collections of disappearances in the Triangle is Flight 19. On the afternoon of December 5th, 1945, a squadron of 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers take off from Fort Lauderdale on a routine training mission. Their task is to complete navigation problem number 1, which is a fairly simple navigation and bombing exercise that will take them out east from the coast to a place called Hen and Chickens Shoals, where they will drop their bombs, then north for a little bit before returning back to Fort Lauderdale. The mission leader is U.S. Navy Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor, who has over 2,500 flight hours, as well as a tour in the Pacific theater of World War II under his belt. And the other pilots are still in training, but they are far from novices. The 14 men head out about 2:10 in the afternoon into gorgeous weather, drop their bombs between 2:30 and 3 o'clock, and then turn to begin the second leg of the journey, when things quickly get weird. Chatter between the planes seems to indicate that both of Lieutenant Taylor's compasses are on the fritz.
Both my compasses are out and I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm over land, but it's broken. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down. And I don't know how to get to Fort Lauderdale.
The Keys? How is that even possible? Their position has been triangulated to be somewhere north of the Bahamas, nowhere near the Keys. And another plane is heard to say,
I don't know where we are. We must have gotten lost after that last turn.
Efforts to help the squadron find its way back home continue for hours, with each radio transmission getting weaker and weaker until nothing else can be heard. One of the last transmissions that is heard talks about them getting low on fuel, with Lieutenant Taylor instructing the other pilots,
When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, we all go down together.
the idea being that if they all ditch into the water close together, they make a bigger target for the rescue team to spot. And by this time, a rescue operation was absolutely underway. Any vessel in the area, military or merchant, is put on alert to look for the wayward planes. And 2 PBM-5 Mariner planes are scrambled to head out and start searching. Unfortunately, by now, the sun has set and that picture-perfect weather did not last. So not only did the squadron probably ditch into high waves and rough seas, but the rescue planes are flying straight into it as well in the dark. But I guess the triangle is not yet satiated, because 20 minutes after takeoff, one of those mariners goes radio silent. A merchant ship off the coast of Fort Lauderdale radios in that they just witnessed a burst of flame in the sky in the same area that the Mariner is supposed to be. She and her 13 rescuers are never heard from again, and neither are the 14 members of Flight 19. The Navy lost 27 servicemen in an 8-hour period. In the following 5 days, the Navy searched about 300,000 square miles of ocean for all 6 missing planes, but not 1 square inch of debris is found from any of the planes. Now, Flight 19 is far from being the first incident of high strangeness in the Triangle. Even Christopher Columbus writes about having compass issues as he sails through the area. Documented cases go back into the 1800s, with cases like the Ellen Austin. The Ellen Austin is a merchant schooner on a routine trip from London to New York. Along the way, it runs into another ship that's totally fine, but missing its entire crew. Woohoo for them! The law of the sea says finders, keepers. So the captain of the Ellen Austin, Captain Baker, assigns some of his men to climb aboard the empty ship and pilot the salvage ship back to New York with the Ellen Austin. Before they hit the U.S., the 2 ships get separated in a hurricane that's screaming through on its way to slamming the coasts of Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. By the time the days-long storm is over, the salvage ship is nowhere in sight. Captain Baker sails around for a few days looking for the ship, and against all odds, he actually finds it. As the Ellen Austin rolls up on it one more time, the crew is again gone. So Captain Baker assigns another crew to pilot the ship. This time the guys say, "No way, that thing is cursed." Well, he must have done some hard bargaining, because he finally got another crew on the ship, and the 2 ships are on their way once more. However, opposite to the hurricane, this time the water goes so still that both boats are brought to a standstill and a fog rolls in. By the time the fog lifts, the salvage boat is nowhere in sight. This time, Captain Baker listens to his men and sets sail for anywhere but there. Then there's the story of the Star Tiger and the Star Ariel. Both planes are British South American Airways Tudor 4 model planes. The Star Tiger takes off from England on January 30th, 1948, with 31 people on board. The pilot radioed in that he expected to arrive in Bermuda at 5 a.m. But the plane never made it. Almost a year to the day later, on January 17th, 1949, the Star Ariel takes off from Bermuda on its way to Jamaica with 20 people on board. Pilot radios in that everything is as smooth as glass. His next transmission is not so smooth. Air traffic control picks up a garbled message about switching to a different frequency, and that's the last thing they hear. No bodies or wreckage is ever found for either plane, and South American Airways promptly stops manufacturing the Tudor 4 model. During World War I, the USS Cyclops is tasked with sailing to Brazil with coal to refuel Allied ships. On its way back home, with 309 people on board, the ship leaves Barbados and is never heard from again. This disappearance is the single largest loss of life in U.S. naval history not involving combat. December 28, 1948, an airborne transport DC-3 airliner carrying 29 passengers and 3 crew members is 50 miles south of Miami. It radios air traffic control to let them know, hey, we're almost there. But the transmission is received in New Orleans. So obviously, they somehow got off course, but the plane never lands anywhere and no wreckage is ever found. The Carroll A. Deering is a 5-masted schooner that on January 31st, 1921, is found run aground in the Diamond Shoals near Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, with her crew nowhere in sight. An FBI investigation into the wreck rules out multiple theories as to what happened, including piracy, domestic communist sabotage, and the involvement of rum runners. Okay, I think you get the idea. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There are many places online you can go to look for more extensive lists of mystery if you choose. Maybe I'll even do another episode to cover more of them. Also, it's not even just boats and planes that are at risk in the Triangle. Great Isaac Lighthouse is a 151-foot tall lighthouse built in 1859 in London for the London Exposition of 1862, after which it is disassembled, shipped to the tiny Bahamian island of Great Isaac Cay, about 20 miles north-northeast of the Bimini Islands, and reassembled. As an aside, this lighthouse has a legend from a ship that wrecked on the island in the late 1800s, and the only survivor was a baby boy. Locals say the boy's mother, who came to be known as the Gray Lady, still appears occasionally, wailing and looking for her little boy. That legend aside, the lighthouse is manned by 2 men whose job it is to keep the light shining. But in early August of 1969, a passing ship notices that the lighthouse isn't lit. A crew is sent to go check on the 2 lighthouse keepers, only to discover that they're gone. Now, the only way on and off this island is by boat, so it's not like they just decided to leave. Now, I'm certainly not saying that all of these disappearances are due to paranormal causes. Obviously, some are just random acts of nature of the fatal kind. But for those that are a step above being able to be explained by nature, there are a few theories of things that might be going on that we just don't understand. One of those theories is Hex Clouds. Using satellite imagery, meteorologist Dr. Randy Cervini has discovered these weird hexagonal-shaped cloud formations. Or if you look at the images, they look more like hexagonal absence of cloud images. Now, these things are between 20 and 50 miles wide and form over rough weather and are thought to be formed by microbursts. Microbursts are fast-moving jets of air that rocket down from higher in the atmosphere and can be as destructive as a tornado. So if your little 20-foot yacht gets hit by one of these microbursts, you very well could be toast. Another theory is the Hutchison effect, also known as electric fog. If you read through some of these accounts of airplanes that have experienced something unusual in the Triangle, very often they talk about flying through a fog and all of their instruments going haywire. Well, a guy named John Hutchison has put forth the theory that the fog is actually a cloud formed by electromagnetic fields. So when a plane or a ship passes through it, the electromagnetic fields kind of glom on and follow along, making the instruments go nuts. John claims to have reproduced the phenomena in a lab, making strange things happen, like swirling fog, levitating objects, and objects shooting off at high speed. Of course, there is the ever-popular methane bubble theory. Is it me, or is the methane bubble theory to Bermuda Triangle like the weather balloon theory is to UFO investigations? For those of you who've never heard of this fun little theory, the idea is that there are pockets of methane under the seafloor that, on occasion, let loose some methane gas that then mixes with the water, making it less dense. The less dense water is not dense enough to hold up the ship, which then sinks. Now, I don't argue with the fact that there are methane deposits under the seafloor. There are many of them mapped all over the world. And if a ship should accidentally float over one of these pockets at the wrong time, they certainly would sink pretty fast. But so fast that they don't have time to send a mayday? Why haven't we heard about this being a factor in missing ships anywhere else? And even so, that doesn't explain the missing airplanes. Now that we've covered the terrestrial ideas, let's talk about some non-terrestrial ideas. One of the first things I always think about are vortices. Several pilots talk about flying into cloud formations that sound exactly like what you would think a vortex would look like. But unfortunately, we have nothing else to go on. No one except the pilots have ever seen them, and our science isn't advanced enough to know if these things occur naturally. So if vortices are swallowing planes and ships, it's kind of like the perfect murder where the bullet made of ice melts, so no evidence is left behind. But we do have eyewitnesses to plenty of UFO and USO sightings. Would you believe me if I told you that the government might have something to do with them? I thought so. It just so happens that the Navy has an Area 51 all its own. Except this one has its own website. The Atlantic Undersea Test and Evaluation Center, or AUTEC, is a naval equipment and weapons testing facility located in Androstown in the Bahamas, right on the edge of the Bermuda Triangle. And there are plenty of people who will tell you that the number of UFO and USO, or unidentified submerged object, sightings have gone up dramatically since AUTEC has been around. So are some of these sightings due to some testing going on at AUTEC? Most likely, but not all of them. Back in the 1980s, Kurt Roulette is a member of the Coast Guard. It's night and his boat is patrolling off the shores of Androstown. He's on watch duty when his radar guy says that he sees a 3-mile wide island-sized mass appear out of nowhere on their radar where a landmass is not supposed to be. It's like something massive rising out of the water. For perspective, Manhattan is only 2.5 miles wide. About the same time, their compass starts going crazy.
Subsequently, at the same time, the compass began to swing wildly, completely out of control.
After about 3 minutes, the radar target slowly evaporates, as if whatever was sitting on the surface is slowly sinking back down again, and the compass goes back to normal. Unfortunately, this happened at night, so Kurt can't actually see what the radar says is in front of them, but the event is actually entered into the ship's log as something that really happened.
And that's something that doesn't go into the log unless the captain takes it seriously.
This next encounter is even more crazy. It's the evening of August 25th, 2013, when the crew of a United States Customs and Border Patrol plane is taking off for a routine mission in Agadir, Puerto Rico. They notice a strange pinkish light coming in from the northwest, so they turn on their thermal imaging camera to track it. What they see is a bit startling, to say the least. It looks like a metallic sphere flying around the airport. The sphere then heads out over the ocean where it splashes down into the water and then comes back up a few seconds later. Then it splits into 2 separate spheres. After nearly 4 minutes of flying around, it vanishes. So I don't think anyone can argue that there are some mighty strange things happening in that area of the world. Can some of those events be explained by natural occurrences? Sure. Take the Ellen Austin. This one could very well just be folklore, because I'm not sure why a ship going from London to New York would sail as far south as Bermuda. Then again, since the ocean current is going the opposite direction, maybe ships dipped a little further south so they didn't have to fight it the whole trip. Who knows? The disappearance of the lighthouse keepers could be explained by Hurricane Anna that swept through the area between August 1st and 2nd. Of course, my first question would be, why would they go outside in a hurricane? Considering how frequently these hurricanes hit the area, I am sure this was not their first rodeo. But let's talk about Flight 19. To me, this one's not so easy to dismiss. The official explanation is that Lieutenant Taylor had some kind of mental break that caused him to get confused about where he was, that he is responsible for leading his squad of 14 men to their probable deaths. Not necessarily a far-fetched conclusion. I mean, he thinks he sees the Keys when he's way north of there. And if he thinks he's over the Keys, how does he not know how to get to Fort Lauderdale from there? But the theory goes that he's all turned around, so he accidentally leads the squadron out east into the Atlantic, where they run out of fuel and have to ditch into rough waters. And some people will explain the fact that they stayed together as a group by saying that a pilot always follows their mission leader, which is probably true in a real-world situation. But for this kind of exercise, if one person gets something wrong, they will all fail. So mistakes, even by the flight leader, are sometimes corrected by the other pilots. But since the Navy had no real information as to what really happened except the sparse radio contact, Lieutenant Taylor's family fought the official findings. They argued that since the cause of the accident is unknown, there's no way to know if it was anyone's fault. Lieutenant Taylor's family won, officially clearing his name. The plane's never been recovered. Tangent warning! In 1996 and 1992, wreckage from Avengers, like the ones from Flight 19, were found off the coast of Florida, but couldn't be conclusively identified as pieces of Flight 19's planes. In 1991, wreckage from 5 planes were found, but engine serial numbers proved they were not from that flight. Those 5 planes were tracked down and found to have gone in the ocean on 5 different days within 1.5 miles of each other. A deep dive into Navy records discovered that around that time, the time right after World War II, if a plane was declared unfit to fly or obsolete, the Navy would just ditch them in the ocean. Now, one very common thread in a lot of these accounts is reports of compass malfunctions. Many debunkers will tell you, oh, that's a natural phenomenon called compass variation. So, there's true north, and then there's magnetic north. Most of the time, compasses point to magnetic north. The difference isn't much, but it's enough to put you off course. So skeptics will tell you that the Bermuda Triangle area is one of those areas that point to true north, which naturally confuses whoever is reading the compass. The only problem with that theory is that it's not true. Even the U.S. Navy says so, giving a statement that says,
"It has been inaccurately claimed that the Bermuda Triangle is one of the 2 places on Earth at which a magnetic compass points towards true north. Normally, a compass will point toward magnetic north. The difference between the 2 is known as compass variation. Although in the past, this compass variation did affect the Bermuda Triangle region due to fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field, this has apparently not been the case since the 19th century.
It's actually called the agonic line, the area where magnetic north and true north are the same direction, and it moves over time as magnetic north moves over time. And right now, that line is over the Gulf of Mexico. So all those reports of malfunctioning compasses have nothing to do with compass variation. They are not natural occurrences. Since we are debunking the debunkers, let's talk about another frequently repeated line of reasoning that goes something like this. A check of the records at the well-known insurance company Lloyds of London by the editor of Fate magazine in 1975 showed that the Bermuda Triangle area of the Atlantic was no more dangerous or accident-prone than any other area, and the Coast Guard records confirmed the same thing. However, Lloyds of London is not in the business of insuring small things like yachts and small aircraft. So none of those reports are going to show up in the records of Lloyds of London. The Coast Guard is actually a better source for that kind of information since they report on all calls, no matter what type of vessel. The Coast Guard breaks up the country into districts. The Bermuda Triangle area is District 7. Let's compare District 7 to District 1, which is the New England area, because both districts get about the same amount of calls for assistance each year. But the number of disappearances in District 7 is far higher than District 1. And here's the next question. How many of those disappearances happened in fair weather? That's what makes the disappearances in the triangle so mysterious. The high percentage of people going missing when there is no storm to blame. So here's the thing. It's not just that boats and planes disappear. That happens for all kinds of reasons. Storms, pirates, maybe even methane bubbles. The Bermuda Triangle remains a mystery because of those cases that have no explanation. Cases like these. On November 3rd, 1978, Irving Rivers, a pilot for Eastern Caribbean Airways, leaves St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands in a Piper Navajo. Irving is an experienced pilot and is flying alone to St. Thomas to pick up some passengers. Visibility is good, temperatures are warm, it is a beautiful day. Radio communication during the flight is fine, and as he nears the airport in St. Thomas, the plane is cleared for landing. The controller looks out the window and sees the plane's red and green lights blinking about a mile out as it makes its approach. The controller turns his attention to another plane that's taking off. When he looks back toward Irving's plane, the controller can't see the plane's lights anymore, and it's disappeared from the radar. An emergency search effort is launched, but nothing, not even wreckage, is ever found. December 22nd, 1967, a 23-foot luxury cabin cruiser yacht named Witchcraft leaves Miami with its captain, Dan Barak, and his friend, Father Patrick Horgan. The two guys just want to go out like a mile offshore so they can enjoy the fantastic view of the Christmas lights in Miami. However, once they get there, Dan puts in a call to the Coast Guard to let them know that he hit something. There doesn't seem to be any major damage, but they would like some assistance just in case. The Coast Guard gets going right away and reaches the Witchcraft's location in 19 minutes. But the spot where the boat should be is deserted, with no signs of any boats having been stranded or ever having been there at all. This particular boat comes equipped with life jackets, lifeboats, flares, and distress signal beacons. But none of those life-saving devices are apparently used. Over the next few days, the Coast Guard searches hundreds of square miles of the ocean, but nothing from the ship has ever been found. Or how about this one? Halloween, 1991. This one is a little further east of the triangle's usual boundaries, but I think it is worth noting. The pilot, John Verdi, and his trained co-pilot, Paul Lucaris, are out over the Gulf of Mexico heading toward Tallahassee, Florida in a Grumman Cougar Jet. John calls the flight center to request a higher altitude so they can fly over the thunderstorm that has snuck in front of them. Flight center says, no problem, and the turbojet starts ascending from its 25,000 feet to its new assigned altitude of 29,000 feet. Perfect! All seems normal as they climb in altitude, breaking through the cloud cover into the beautiful sun-drenched cloud tops. Flight control waits patiently for the Cougar to finish its climb, tracking it on radar the whole time, until the Cougar's radar marker just fades away. The flight center tries to hail either John or Paul on the radio, but no one responds, and no SOS is received to indicate that they had any problems. But the truly mystifying part is that the radar also does not see the Grumman Cougar descending, as in falling into the sea. There's no sudden loss of altitude. They just disappear from the radar while they're climbing, like they just faded away. The storm hampers the search for a short while, but when searchers do reach the area, no trace of the plane or its passengers is ever recovered. So, as long as boats and planes keep disappearing for absolutely unexplained reasons, the Bermuda Triangle will continue to be real. Every time I research a new episode, I find out more and more about our truly strange and remarkable world. And this time is no different. I'm Caroline, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of Bermuda Triangle Madness. And if you'd like to stick around and watch another video about our strange and remarkable world, click right here. Go on. You know you wanna. Be careful out there. And I will see you here again on the In-Between.